something. I don't know. We'll see. Whatever comes to mind at the time.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I know you're putting these things on the screen in order to to speak to them and help everybody watching know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Do you generally take all these items and put them on the screen together to see how they bounce off of each other, see how they work with each other, or do you just sort of manually?
If I'm going to experiment with an art pack like the Reiner kit or the Reiner pack, yeah, I definitely do. I put an instance of everything up so I can see it contextually and see if it makes sense or not.
Okay.
Because for me, I'm not much of an artist, and so I really got to see these things together. It's hard for me to look at the Reiner art page and go, yeah, those two will work together.
Yeah.
I got to see them in context.
I did kind of see that when I was going through the list there. I was like, ooh, there's an orc. Ooh, there's this. Ooh, there's a dragon.
Yeah.
Like,
some of these things don't work.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the things I was like, I don't know if that's.
But the laser totally works.
Right.
The laser rocks.
Always.
That's all there is to it. Yeah, baby, lasers.
Laser beats no laser every time.
That's laser beats no laser every time. So, what else? Okay, one other thing I want to point out, and then we're going to jump into the actual game development, and that is, let me turn it on here. Lost Garden. I haven't worked this out yet, but I just want to show you how awesome this is. If I could just find the file, that'd be super. Lost Garden, where are you? Scripts. Lost Garden. It's always helpful if you have it open when you're trying to do this. The Lost Garden, I've taken 250 textures, which I am using as the background textures. Now, what you're seeing is just the one grass texture. Sorry, trying to turn this stuff all off here so we can actually see this in motion. And there is a huge rule set. Well, I wouldn't call it huge. There's a semi-complicated rule set for these textures because a lot of them can be used together, and you can create very interesting backgrounds. But just to give you an idea of how many different ones there are, go ahead and turn off the coloring. Okay, that should do it, hopefully. Yeah. All right. So what I've just done is I have turned on random selection of just any texture for each block. And every time I run this again, you'll see that there's a whole series of new textures.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, there are 250 of these, and they are meant to be used together. So there's all kinds of ways to stitch these together. But there is an algorithm that is necessary to make this automated, and I have not quite worked it out. And what I mean is, for example, if we're standing on this face right here, I don't know if you can see if that's a face underneath the reticle.
Yes.
So then the rule would be, if there's a face block here, then only certain textures can be used in these positions. And there's a way algorithmically to figure that out based on the names of the textures.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm going to go into it, but he's given this rule set, and I have to figure out how to put it into Lua so that it's automatic. So you can just like drag and drop a texture, and it automatically places a legal texture next to the current one, so that we can do this in an editor and we can generate nice backgrounds automatically.
Ed, I got a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
On your background image that for your tiling. Now the characters that you've pulled in from Reiner are all basically 2.5D. Or isometric, which
right.
I know there's a lot of interest in building isometric games, so everybody's really excited about seeing that. Are the textures that you're placing now they're currently in a square format? Normally we see isometric rotated to 120 degrees
right.
to get the
right. So these are not entirely suitable to this. Is that? Go ahead and ask your question. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess that is where I'm headed with the question. I'm doing the academic long-winded question.
Okay.
How do we get the background to look as isometric as the characters, and is the background that you're using capable of doing that?
I'm going to say that the background that I'm going to be using here is not capable of doing that in a blockwise fashion, but you could certainly place these in a group and not a group. You could place these in one of the container types and change the aspect ratio.
That would do it.
Then you could make it seem as if it were. But the problem is because I'm going to make these screens significantly larger. I'm going to make the levels significantly larger. But this texture set is not designed to be used in an isometric fashion. However, what you're seeing here is very stark, the differences. But if I flip it back the way it was, and then I go to this boring texture here, right? It suddenly becomes semi-acceptable.
It does look more isometric. Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't really notice it. Yeah, it's definitely straight up and down. It has no aspect ratio. The other thing is we could experiment with if I can't figure this out, the algorithm, which is kind of hairy, and B, if we really want to put this all into isometric layout, Reiner's comes with a whole bunch of backgrounds.
Yes.
So he's already produced a bunch of these. So we could, in theory, use his isometric. The thing is, here's the trick, the rub. The rub with using isometric textures for backgrounds is math. You got to do the math right on the layout. It's not just simply placing them side by side.
Right.
There's angular differences, and you gotta. It's once you figure out the right steps, left, right, up, down, to place the textures, it's done. But you got to figure it out. So.
Yeah.
What do you guys?
Something that we might want to discuss in future after we get this project off of our plate is the use of isometrics in mobile and desktop. The tools that were being used are now very outdated, and there's still a huge interest in creating isometric style games. I think it would behoove us to further explore this issue.
Okay, well, it's the whole background texturing thing is I'm kind of glossing over it in the beginning, so we can certainly spend more time considering making this isometric in its entirety. I would just have to do a little exploration to see if it's even feasible with the tile set that Reiner provides. So, because I have not used his tile set in that fashion before.
Nor have I, but he's got such great isometric models that we can use.
Right, and then it would match because he made his art match, the color theming, because the coloring is a little bit off tier too. And I don't know about you guys, but I sense the colors don't quite work together. So
yeah.
Okay, so lots of traps and pickups, and one thing I didn't mention is there will be magical gates to exit the levels and move on to the next difficulty. So this will be a sequential game where it gets harder and harder. The goal is to collect items that you need to advance while staying alive, and the longer you stay alive, the harder the level gets, so you got to move quickly, and that's basically where we're going. So assuming that we know where we're going now, which I feel like we do, we can move on to actually developing the game.
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet? Yeah, exactly. So this is our current pardon me, this is our current game, which is less than the exploration, but it is fully coded in standard Corona. So you should be able to follow along. Sorry, I'm got a problem here.
So just so I'm clear on what you're saying, early on we had said that there was the I guess pure Corona version, and then there were some exploration versions where you were going to use SSK so that you could quickly iterate through the different versions, and we could kind of play with things and then eventually come back to the pure play, just Corona version. So are you saying? So you're saying that right now what we're looking at now is just the pure play version?
Yes. So we're no longer looking at you're asking a good question that I should clarify on. We have the app folder under top-down shooter, which is the game we're working on. One of the folders here is config testing, folder 1, which is where we explored just the layout for desktop and the build settings file, config.lua. Exploration is where we were just at a moment ago. It's the one we've been looking at for the last couple of weeks, where I quickly used SSK to iterate over a bunch of different movement styles and camera types and just various other little tiny details that I didn't want to longhand code because it would take me too long to explore. And now, on the screen behind here, which you can't quite see, is the game folder. It's the third folder, folder 3 game. and that will contain a full game that we are going to be working on now, week to week together, where I may take you back and show you something in the exploration kit and say this is the thing that we're going to put in, or I'll give like a hint at next week's show. But mostly we're going to be talking to this folder now.